Hi, I'm Bob Tabor with www.learnvisualstudio.net. In this module, we're going to dive deeper into the current Microsoft Azure Management Portal, as well as the Preview Portal. Without a doubt, your first exposure to Microsoft Azure will be through the Management Portal. As I mentioned in the previous lesson, as a best practice, you should labor to push past the portal as well as any other client tools and automate everything that you can using PowerShell or one of the other scripting methods. But for learning's sake, you're going to start with the Management Portal. We're going to begin with the current portal at the time of this recording. Now, the Preview Portal calls it the full portal. Most people call it the current Management Portal, knowing that the preview is on the horizon, as opposed to this Preview Portal, which we're going to look at in just a moment. So Azure is under heavy development with frequent updates, and virtually every day there are changes to some aspect of Azure. And this is readily apparent whenever you start looking at the portal and where we're going from the current one to the next one. Undoubtedly, you're going to be watching this video a year from now, from the time when I recorded it, and the only portal that you're going to have access to will be the one that I refer to in this video as the Preview Portal. Unfortunately, again, that is the nature of the beast. So the current portal is actually the second version. It's clean and minimalistic. Let's log in. From the home page, I'll click Portal. I'm going to click an account to use. Let's see if I have one here. And so, as you can see, again, clean and minimalistic. It allows you to perform just about every possible action that you can inside of Azure. And there are 6 main areas. First of all, the sidebar, and you use this to access existing services. They're all grouped together by the type of service. Then there's the main area, and this is where you configure and monitor a particular service, or you see lists of services. Then there's the command bar. This is where you can create new services, for example, or you can create a new website. I'll go ahead and quit that for now. Then there's the menu, and this is where you can get to account-related information through the View My Bill link. You can get to support and documentation and things of that nature. And then finally, there's a notification bar. You can see that I have one notification here at the very bottom. There's a notification about a subscription, and I'll just say okay to get rid of that. Okay. So this will let you receive updates about the completion of a long-running operation, such as the creation or the deletion of a service, or like you saw here, a billing-related matter. And then there's occasionally pop-up wizards that step you through a series of questions in order to guide you through the configuration operation for a certain task. For example, let's go ahead and I'm going to go down here and create within one of the directories I have a new user, and this will show you that there is a new user dialog. So the dialogs look something like this. Here we'll go Jim, and you can see that they're multi-stepped, and you can always get out of them by clicking the X. There's kind of that light box where it's all shaded out in the background, and you can just see the top layer, the modal dialog. So each individual service may also have a set of tabs to configure or to monitor a particular aspect of the service. So we've already seen here at the very top there are a number of tabs. They don't really look like your traditional tabs, but they're links to get to another portion inside of the same basic service. Let's see this as well in our websites. I have one website already up and running, and the first thing you see is kind of a start screen. You can get to it with this little cloud lightning bolt icon in the upper left-hand corner, but this is to help orient you to what's possible for this given service. There's also the dashboard, which gives you some statistics about usage and allows you to get at some of the most important functions and some of the settings and like the locations where things are, so that you can, for example, get into FTP or get at operation logs and things of that nature. You can also see that you're able to monitor the usage of your services over the course of a given month. Let's move on from there. And then there are also screens that allow you to configure aspects of a given service. And so this is a good typical configuration style panel inside of a given service. So here you can just set, for example, something to by using these little light switch controls. So I can change the PHP version, for example, and then I'd have to make, in this case, save those changes. All right, so this is just illustrating the fact that these are the types of ways that you would navigate through the full portal. And hopefully, based on your prerequisite skill level, navigating through the current portal's user interface will seem pretty self-explanatory. It'll feel natural. As I mentioned in the previous lesson, in this version of the portal, regardless of the application that a service belongs to, it's grouped together with other instances of the same service. So for example, let's go ahead and say we will lose all the changes. So for example, if I wanted to see all the websites that I have spun up, I can see them there. I can see all the SQL databases, all kind of grouped together by the type of service that's available. But this can make locating the specific service that you're looking for a bit tedious if you have several dozen or more applications running, each one relying on their own collection of services, websites, databases, cloud services, virtual machines, and the like. And so that was the impetus for the newly designed what's called Preview Portal. And in order to access that Preview Portal, you can see that they're trying to pop up and tell me about it. But typically what you would do is go up to the upper left-hand corner menu and then select Switch to New Portal. And we'll go ahead and get started. At the time when I'm recording this, you can do almost everything that you need to do through the Preview Portal. There are probably some specific activities that have not yet been moved over from the full portal to the Preview Portal. I'm sure that it's just a matter of weeks or months before that happens, at which point that they'll deprecate the old full portal, and this will be the primary portal that everybody will use. But if this particular Preview Portal makes you nervous, you can always go to the menu in the upper right-hand corner, and you can select Full Azure Portal to get back to the full portal that we just looked at a moment ago. So in this same menu, since we're here, you can do some other interesting things, like you can change the color theme by clicking Settings, and you can see that there are specific themes available. You can choose whether to always show the start board and jump bar labels and things of that nature. Let's just go ahead and close that down. The Preview Portal has four main areas. The most prominent is the start board. That's pretty much the area in the middle with all the large squares and rectangles. And essentially this will give you some visibility into specific metrics that you're monitoring across one or more of the services that you're using across one or more projects and so on. Then off to the right-hand side, we've already seen the menu. Off to the left-hand side, this is called the Hub menu. I've heard it called Sidebar, but I think its official name is the Hub menu. And so the idea behind the hubs or the Hub menu is that there are these things that are common to all of the services. So, for example, all of the notifications across all the services that you employ appear here. It's not up to each individual service to pop up notifications all over the place. They're centralized inside of this notification hub. Same is true with the Browse Hub. These are all of your services, and therefore you can browse through them. And if you take a look, there's this active area. It used to be called Journeys, but it's the Active Hub. So the Active Hub helps you find your way back to the blades that you were working on. So Vishal Joshi, who was one of its creators, called Journeys, now it's called Active, the Alt tab for your services. So in other words, it's kind of like an alternate desktop. You can switch between each of the work that you're doing as you kind of expand out, and we'll show you that in just a moment here. Now there are no items in Active because I haven't done anything yet. This is the first time that Bob at atris.onmicrosoft.com has logged into the Preview Portal. All right, and then the next thing is our blades, and blades are basically dialogues that allow you to configure a service. So for example, let's take a look at all of our services here, and we'll find our websites. And so we can click on a specific website and it'll open up a blade. And so to orient you around a blade, there are several different parts. At the very top here, these are the commands that are associated with a given service or resource. So for example, you could restart the website, delete the website, browse it, stop it, things of that nature. Also in the upper right hand corner, you have some options like you can minimize the blade. You can then also maximize the blade and see it kind of in its full-blown glory. That's pretty cool. Or you can see it in this vertical view, and it's meant to be optimized for mobile devices, and so that's why it's given this narrow range here. So in addition to the parts that we've already looked at, a blade also has a series of lenses, and a lens is a collection of parts that are grouped together in a theme. So for example, here's the monitoring lens, and here's the usage lens, and here is the operations lens, and so on. And so what you can do is, inside of a lens, there are all these individual parts, and these individual parts can be clicked on so that you can get another blade with more information. So in this particular case, it talks about the events in the past week, deployments, updates, things of that nature. Here, let's click on another one, requests and errors. There haven't been many requests. I just set this up a couple of days ago, but hopefully you get the idea. Now, in most cases, you can right-click on a given part, and you can pin that part to the start board. We'll do that in just a moment. But you can also edit a given item. And so, for example, if I wanted to change this from requests and errors, I might change it from just today to maybe this past week. I might also include the average response time and I don't know, maybe any 404 errors that were experienced on the website. And then finally, I can right-click and select Pin to Start Board. And take a look here. You can see that we have a notification now that something has been pinned to the start board. I can click on it, and that'll give me all the notifications. Let me click on that notification now and jump to the start board. It won't let me do that. Okay, we'll just click on Home. There we go. And so you can see it here. There's no data available, unfortunately. Now, since we're back here at the start board, before I go back to one of the blades, let me just right-click and select Customize, and you can move things around and resize them. You can right-click and say, I want this to be just a normal size or a wide tile, and then I can, move it around, and it will actually push other things out of the way as I move around. That's pretty neat. But again, customization is the key here, and it allows you to get at all the information that you're most interested in. Let us get back to where we were. Let's click Done for now. We're done customizing our start board. And I'm going to click Active, and hopefully, there is a basically a link that we can get back to where we were, the blade, the desktop, I guess you can say, where we were previously. And here again, we're back at the Atris website, looking at the lenses and the individual parts. And I believe there's some pretty cool parts here, not just reports of things that have happened in the past, but also it allows you to set things up and change things about your service. And then there's also some pretty neat things like, for example, a console where you can do the actual compute instance for this given item. So not all of these obviously have something like that, but that's a pretty cool little feature. So the intent here as we go back to the start board is that you would pin information that's important to you for a given application. The key to the new portal is linking all the services that are related to a specific application inside of the same resource group. So if you can take a look on screen right now, I've taken a screenshot of two different users, and you can see the dramatic difference between their start boards. They're monitoring the same collection of services. They're just seeing it differently. They have different colors between Steve and Bob. And so since I'm starting off with a relatively new account, I've got nothing really all that interesting to show you. However, if you take a look at this URL, this is a blog post from Brian Keller. A couple of months ago, he basically helped create a start board for the Microsoft Office blog. And he says it only took them 15 minutes to set this up with the information that mattered to them. And so as we look through this web page, there's a couple of highlights here. For example, the resource map. It is a visualization of a resource group, which is basically a model where the relationship between the resources are stored along with other important information. So for this application, you can see that there's a relationship between the production website, the staging website, and the billing plan. And for other applications, you might also see databases, database servers, or even Visual Studio Online team projects where the source code is managed and bugs are related to this application are being tracked. Moving down on that page, you can see that he talks about the analytics section. They pinned the number of views for the top 5 pages by day and hour, which browsers are visitors using, the service health at a glance. You can see if the data centers in any of the regions are having problems, as well as the service health for all of the services that the blog relies on. Pricing and billing to see how much they're actually spending on this blog so far for this billing period. And some of this is made possible by something called Application Insights, which is, it provides you with a range of analytics for your applications, and you can build it in very easily when you use Visual Studio. And so this allows you to understand if your application is available, how it's performing, and even how users are interacting with your particular service. Okay, so before we conclude, I also want to show you the Account Center. And so I'm going to go ahead and go back to the full Azure portal. And then in the menu, I'm going to select View My Bill. And this is where you manage subscriptions. That's one of the reasons why it's making me log in again, is because it wants to make sure that I am indeed the person who has access to the billing information. So as we're going to learn a little bit later, every Azure service is associated with a subscription. Basically, a subscription is a payment method for services. So as an individual, you might never need more than one subscription. But for larger organizations, this could allow each department or each project to track and to pay for their Azure usage separately. So in this particular case, at the Atris organization, you can see that there's a sales subscription and an operations subscription. They may use 2 different credit cards, corporate credit cards. They can now also track how much they're spending individually, and the accountants at the company will be happy. And so we're going to talk about this in depth whenever we get into accounts, subscriptions, directories, users, and so on in just a little bit. We're going to learn that there is a specific role, the account administrator, that can access the account center. As an individual, this isn't going to matter. Again, you're the master of your own domain. You can do everything inside of both the management portal and the account center. But for larger organizations, they need to split up the responsibilities to different individuals. Again, we'll discuss all of that later on in an upcoming module. Okay, so to recap, while you'll eventually want to graduate to scripting your deployments and managing your deployments that way, or any configuration tasks as a best practice, the Azure portal is a great place to get started as you learn what's available and how to create and manage your own services. So at the time of this recording, the portal comes in 2 flavors, the present and the future, or rather the full portal and the preview portal. The preview portal doesn't have all of the services at the time of this recording that are integrated into it, but eventually it'll be the primary portal that'll give access to everything that you need. And we looked at the user interface for both portals, and we talked about the major sections of each and how to interact with those sections. And then we talked about the difference between the two, that the current portal organizes information by service type regardless of which project that it's associated with. The preview portal organizes information by the application resource group, by the application which the service belongs to. The start board is customizable, and it can be used as a DevOps resource. So you can put it on a large TV, and so that everybody can see the health of the service as they're walking down the hallway. Or you can customize each individual user's board, and so that they can only see those pieces of the puzzle that are important for their particular job role or that particular team. And then finally, the Account Center, what we're looking at here, allows you to manage the subscription for an account. It's a means of payment and tracking for the Azure services that you'll add. All right, so that is all we need to say about the portals. We'll keep going in the next lesson. We'll see you there. Thanks.